Welcome to another episode of Trial Site News. Today we're going to be discussing a recent news article from The Stream, where Dr. Ben Carson, a neurosurgeon and former Trump Housing and Urban Development Secretary, has come out and condemned the FDA for their, quote, relentless crusade against the drug Ivermectin. We're going to talk about what is going on here. And so, from Trial Site News, I am Adrian, and our episode is starting right now. So, before we get into our story today, a quick reminder about the WHO, or the World Health Organization's, current stance on ivermectin's use for COVID-19. They say that the current evidence on the use of ivermectin to treat COVID-19 patients is inconclusive. The WHO also says that until more data is available, they recommend that the drug only be used within clinical trials. This recommendation, which applies to patients with COVID-19 of any disease severity, is now part of the WHO's guidelines on COVID-19 treatments. So, back to the topic at hand. Two prominent figures in the past Trump administration have come forward to declare the actions by federal agencies such as the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and others have overstepped their boundaries, turning into what they claim is an illegal crusade against the generic drug Ivermectin. The well-known neurosurgeon Dr. Ben Carson is a founder of the American Cornerstone Institute and served the previous President of the United States as U.S. Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, while attorney C. Boyden Gray served as White House Counsel, U.S. Ambassador to the European Union, and a special envoy on behalf of the U.S. to Europe for Eurasia. Now, both Boyden Gray and Dr. Ben Carson are standing up against the medical and legal establishment. They penned in an op-ed that actions against doctors embracing ivermectin as part of a regimen to treat early COVID-19 patients was improper and most certainly illegal. The two authors established the importance of early treatments of patients against COVID-19 with safe and effective drugs. Now, early on, there were no such drugs available, and doctors were obligated to help their patients find solutions with repurposed drugs. And this is a common practice encouraged by medical societies, especially here in the US. Now, Boyden Gray and Ben Carson argued that this class of care falls under the purview of local doctors on a state-by-state basis, and that the FDA overstepped its boundaries here. Now, while ivermectin is fully approved by the FDA for use in humans, not under an emergency use authorization, Ben Carson and Gray wrote that the agency has no grounds for warning against or trying to prevent its use to treat COVID-19. They accuse the FDA of executing a relentless campaign to derive a pivotal human drug as a horse dewormer, in an action to instill ever-mounting pressure so that doctors would shun its use. In fact, we here at Trial Site News have reported on this very thing. The unacceptable misinformation campaigns that were instituted all the way at the top of the agency. And to show you just how absurd this whole thing is, let's take a moment to address the horse dewormer misinformation that not just the FDA in this case, but many news outlets like CNN have engaged in. Ivermectin was discovered in the 1970s by William C. Campbell and Satoshi Omura, and subsequently developed for use in humans. It has won a Nobel Peace Prize in Physiology or Medicine back in 2015 for human use. The drug, prior to the age of COVID-19, had been given out more than 4.4 billion times to humans. This medication has saved hundreds of millions of people from horrendous diseases like river blindness. River blindness is a disease that causes severe discomfort and eventual blindness among infected people. The flies that spread this awful disease breed in fast-flowing water, and as a result, vast portions of fertile land in Africa were unsafe for agriculture as recently as the 1960s. But, thanks to ivermectin, 25 million acres of land are now free of river blindness, which has restored livelihoods and boosted food security in that part of the world. So way to go, ivermectin. In fact, the World Health Organization themselves list ivermectin as a, quote, essential medicine. You've got sculptures to commemorate the feats of this wonder drug that have been erected in locations around the world, from Atlanta to Amsterdam, and even the World Health Organization itself. So what about the accusations of it not being a safe drug? Well, ivermectin is known to be safe. For perspective, the FDA Adverse Events Reporting System shows 70 deaths associated with ivermectin since 1996. Compare that to the 3,882 deaths associated with acetaminophen, which is the active ingredient in the drug Tylenol, during this very same period. The FDA has authority to approve when drugs like ivermectin can first enter the market in the United States. That much is true. They get to decide what labeling they will use. Doctors can then prescribe those drugs however they think necessary to treat patients, including for, quote, off-label uses that differ from what the FDA have originally approved. The FDA has openly acknowledged that off-label use of approved drugs is not only legal, but a necessary and important part of the practice of medicine. For example, an estimated 21% of all prescriptions are for off-label use here in the United States, and that number jumps to 36.2% in adult intensive care units. So now let's shift back to the op-ed. According to Dr. Carson and Mr. Gray, the FDA's actions, quote, violate both fundamental ethics and the law. But why? Well, according to these two gentlemen, Congress was explicit in its intention in the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act that the FDA was not to, quote, interfere in the practice of medicine, which includes prescribing drugs off-label, end quote. However, the FDA has relentlessly publicly bashed what has been a solid anti-parasitic drug because it was used by hundreds if not thousands of doctors across the country during the pandemic. Moreover, the FDA pressured umbrella boards and licensing organizations to, in turn, pressure their members on a state-by-state basis to avoid the drug. And so, in the eyes of the public, this was clearly interpreted by many Americans as banning the use of the drug, which wasn't and cannot be the case here. The agency displayed, quote, insatiable arrogance, refusing to be satisfied with its authority over market entry and labeling, and instead tried to commandeer the role of doctors in treating their patients as well. So now that the accusation has been brought forth, it seems like an important question to ask here. Has the FDA executed an illegal crusade against this low-cost, safe, economical drug in what most certainly appears as a federal takeover of medicine? And if so, what, if anything, will come of all of this? Time, of course, will tell. And that, my friends, will bring our episode to a close once more. As always, thank you so much for joining me on this program today. From Trial Site News, I am Adrian, and I will see you all next time.